Well, I think you have some mayor's races that are very interesting. You have in Boise and also in Meridian. So that's a lot of people who live in those areas, and I think that's ginning up some of this. Plus, I think there's a lot of issues people are concerned about. I mean, they're starting to see that local government has a large effect on their life, such as roads and housing and a lot of other amenities. They're seeing it's not just the national government does that. So I think a lot of people are still have to see what turnout's going to be. I'll wait and see.
Let's focus on Boise first.
Okay.
Mayor's race. What should we be watching in early results to see kind of a clue to how the numbers could end up shaking out?
I think there's a few things you want to look at. First is Arnold. What kind of percentage of numbers is she getting? The higher percentage she gets, the harder it will be for anybody else to get 50%. I think you also want to see who gets ahead early, because usually you don't see that much of a change. Once you get to 20, 30%, there tends not to be a big shift from one to the other. The last thing is anybody over 50%. Does anybody get 50%, and can they hold the 50% overall?
Lauren seems to have really banked her chances on reaching that runoff if it were to happen. If the mayor is unable to get that 50% plus one, what are the chances that any of the other candidates, if they were to finish second place, could knock him off as the incumbent?
I think he's difficult. I think the mayor's tough to beat. Any incumbent's tough to beat. People know him. They've supported him for years. It's tough for them to go and change from one person to the other. I think the one thing you also have is there's not a real big difference between the two main candidates. They basically support the same issues. He actually brought her into her position on the city council. I think it's very difficult to beat an incumbent unless there's some kind of scandal or there's some real problems in the city. Right now, there's not real problems. You don't hear the other candidates saying, "Oh, it's doom and gloom and things are so bad." A little bit from Arnold, too high a tax, but tax are always high, I guess. But mainly, unless there's a reason to get rid of the incumbent usually are going to win.
Looking at Meridian, you've got the chief of staff for the sitting mayor running against sitting state legislator. I mean, where do you see that race going?
Well, I think in Meridian, it's a complete toss-up. Again, you don't have an incumbent in this race, so it's really tough to see. And it's really difficult in these really local elections. There's not that many people who vote. Do you get your people out, or do other people come out? It's really hard to say. They haven't run in this specific area before, so you don't know how it'll work. You don't know how much the former mayor, how powerful her coattails are to help out. You also don't know, okay, you're a state legislator, but doesn't get to the whole city. There's so many variables going in there, you can't really tell. And I think even when you talk to the candidates or some of the people who are working for them on the ground, boy, it's really hard to tell. Oh, I'm going door to door, I'm hearing good things from people. Well, you go to somebody's door, they're usually going to be nice, even if they're not going to vote for you or vote at all.
Back to Boise, looking at the propositions, I mean, two big questions on the ballot. How much is that driving people to show up to the ballot box?
Yeah, I don't think the initiatives are that much of a hot button issue to get people out as much as, say, the Medicaid expansion was last year. And I also think they're confusing. Yes, I'm for the library. Well, then you vote yes on the library. No, that means you. So that's problematic too. Almost all initiatives are confusing to people, and I think these are. So I don't know how much people know enough about them. So I think they might not vote for them either. I think it's very, very interesting to see in a race like this, where it's local elections, how many votes different races get. That you might see a lot more for the mayor than you will see for city council. The people come out and they'll vote for one and not for the other. And a lot of that has to do because it's nonpartisan races. It's difficult for people to figure it out. It's easy when there's the party names down there. Oh, I'm going to vote for the Republican. I'm going to vote for the Democrat, even if I don't know who they are or what the position's about. Now you don't have any of those cues for you. It makes it much different for people. So they might go out and say, oh, I want to vote for so-and-so for mayor, have no idea what else is going on.
Do you see that as, with the state legislature considering changing the way lines are redrawn, do you see that there could be legislation that could change these nonpartisan municipal elections and the way they're run?
Yeah, I could see that could easily be changed into partisan races. I'd be curious to see how much pushback there is. These nonpartisan races, these come from back to the progressive area in the beginning of the 20th century, where people tried to get some of the party politics out of these local races, especially things like school boards. At school, when you're voting for a school, you shouldn't be concerned about parties and things like that. So I'd be curious if it does come up whether people will push it away or not. The Republican Party, their chair is already asking, hey, if you want to know how these people are, the candidates, how they're actually, what party they're actually registered in, you can find that out from us. So people want to know those cues. That's what's so tough in these nonpartisan elections. I have to do hard work to figure all this stuff out. It's so much easier if I just vote for the party.
Looking ahead to Wednesday morning. Let's say we get to Wednesday morning and there's just no clarity for that mayoral election. What should voters keep their eyes on, or what kind of fatigue could there be for these candidates that are running so hard?
Well, I think one thing, almost the vast majority of times, whoever wins the first round wins the second round. Now that doesn't always happen. It depends on how the split is between the other candidates. But I see that could actually happen because they're both going against the same voters there. So whoever we see win on Wednesday probably going to win the next round. Though of course it's not definite. But I think the fatigue's not going to be just with the candidates. It's going to be with the voters too. You're going to have another race. It's going to be supposed to be within about 30 days. Well, there's Thanksgiving, and then you're going to Christmas. We might have some snow. There's all kinds of things. So the turnout might be much lower. So it's a bit of a crapshoot. Like I said, whoever wins the first round tends to win the runoff, but there's no guaranteeing of that, especially if turnout turns out to be much lower in the second round.
Is there any concern about the city of Meridian having the same situation, not having somebody reach 50% plus one?
They don't do a runoff. Okay. So there's only a couple cities that do runoffs, and it's not, and Meridian's not one. It's interesting. Boise used to have both the city council and the mayor as runoff, and they took the city council away. They didn't take the mayor away. They
took it away.
It was somebody it's the city council voted for it.
Okay.
Any city.
For some reason, I thought the state did.
No, any city can have a runoff if they want to. Boise used to have both. They had a runoff in a city council one. The person who won said, we got to stop this. This is awful. And they did stop it for the city council, but not for the mayor. What might happen, this might be the last one you see, because one of the problems is the county runs, the city's got to pay for this too. So is it really worth it? Again, if you see you get basically the same results, is it really worth it to run it again? That's another argument for if you have a partisan race, you're not going to need a runoff.
Looking at the money that at least the two major candidates in the mayoral's race in Boise are sitting on, it could make for fairly interesting November for voters, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of money, a lot of outside money, a lot of different groups helping them out, and I think it's some of it's going down to the city council too. This is interesting that there's certain groups have kind of endorsed a slate of candidates in there, and they're pushing for them. It'll be interesting which one of those candidates wins and which ones don't, how much of an effect these endorsements have. If one of the groups, hey, we've endorsed these people and they won, that'll give them much more power in going forward and saying, if you don't go along with us, we won't endorse you.
Okay. Anything I missed that we should talk about?
I think we talk about Meridian and Boise, and that's where most people live, but everywhere around, there's local city council races, there's school board races out there also. And what you really see is how few people actually go out to vote, that if you and a bunch of your neighbors and such get together and go out and actually do something, you can have an effect on positions, again, like school board and such. And I've even had people coming to my door in Caldwell about a school district school board member running. So I think it's, you said there's a lot of enthusiasm out there. It's not just Meridian and Boise, but even when you get Caldwell School Board have people doing canvassing door to door, that tells you that people are pretty fired up about this.